As Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Yeshua were leaving Jerusalem, Rabbi Yeshua turns around and he starts to cry. The city is aflame. The temple, a wonder of the Roman world and perhaps the largest building project of the 1st century BCE, and the city of gold were on fire, in ruins. Rabbi Yeshua cried. If you've been to Jerusalem, if you've been to the Southern Wall excavations or on the Temple Tunnel tour, you too have seen the evidence of the magnitude of that moment. The impact of 2-ton stones being pushed over the edge of the Temple Mount and cratering the earth below. It's clearly visible in the street, as are the Roman catapults, as is the soot of the raging fires on the stone itself. Across the way on the Temple Mount, there's an archaeological site sifting through the remains of that period of time. There, renowned archaeologist Gabi Barkai is identifying arrowheads, shields, swords, spears, and other evidence of the sacking of Jerusalem that made Rabbi Yeshua cry. The destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem, changed Judaism forever. Rabbi Yeshua cried because he understood in that moment that his world was never going to be the same again. That feeling, writes Lori Fox, in an August 15 opinion in the Globe and Mail, is grief. And that's the feeling many of us feel at this moment. We can go out and get a coffee. We can go for a walk in the park. We can have a beer on a patio. We can attend Rosh Hashanah services through a live stream. But it doesn't really matter. The world we knew is gone. The life you thought you were going to have is gone. The lives we thought we were going to have are gone. The pandemic is reshaping every aspect of our lives, every aspect of our world. It's changing the ways in which we think, behave, and relate to each other. Marcelo Gleiser, the 2019 Templeton Prize laureate and a professor at Dartmouth College, goes so far as to suggest that COVID-19 is changing us as a species. He states that the virus will not wipe us out, but it is causing untold pain and loss, destabilizing global markets, and turning our daily lives into a dreamscape. Our vulnerability and codependence are openly exposed. Nature does not care about our arrogance. Things are scary. It's okay to not be okay. We are allowed to be anxious and afraid. It's okay to grieve. Like Rabbi Yeshua, it's okay to cry. I've cried too. I've also been reading with fascination the pundits' thoughts on the ways in which our world will change. The Globe and Mail outlined 41 ways, everything from new forms of greeting to how we parent, to economics and politics, to how we gather, how we work, go to school, see the doctor, travel, and leisure. When was the last time, for instance, you used cash? Even how we experience shul is and will be different. Mark Lila, a professor of humanities at Columbia University, writes that people facing immediate danger want to hear an authoritative voice they can draw assurance from. They want to be told what will occur and that all will be all right, how they should prepare. We speculate about the future. We engage in prophecy because we mortals are not well suited for uncertainty. Alas, lo navi anochi velo ben navi anochi. I am neither a prophet nor the child of a prophet. The truth is, no one knows what's going to happen. And as Lila writes, we live in a state of radical uncertainty. The first step is to accept it. Unatana Tokef is the emotional centerpiece of the Machzor liturgy. It is our tradition's acceptance of uncertainty, that so much of what happens to us in life is beyond our control. It portrays God standing in judgment upon us, weighing our deeds to determine mi yichya u'mi yamut, who will live and who will die, who will be inscribed b'Sefer Chaim in the book of life, and who will be inscribed in that other book. The point is, we really don't know. Rabbi David Teutsch says it like this: in our everyday lives, we live with an illusion of control. We guard our health by eating well and exercise and getting regular checkups. We get ahead professionally by working hard and building relationships with others. At the liturgical moment of Unetana Tokef, we are forced to admit how profoundly our lives can be altered by random occurrences over which we have no control. A brain hemorrhage or heart attack can come out of nowhere. A drunk driver can cripple or kill. An organization's sudden economic reversal can unexpectedly result in layoffs or firings. A global, once-in-a-century pandemic can disrupt our entire world. Mi bara'ash u'mi b'magefa, who by earthquake and who by plague. Every year we recite these words. This year, we really feel them. What is in our control, however, is how we respond to what happens, how we live with life's uncertainties. For Unetana Tokef, tshuva, tefillah, u'tzedakah will avert or mitigate the severity of life's decrees. Tshuva, meaning a return to the awareness of God and a commitment to walking in the path of Torah. Tefillah, meaning cultivating an inner spirituality, mindfulness, and gratitude that connects us to the divine. Tzedakah, meaning justice, not simply charity, but rather a calling out to put the pursuit of righteousness in the center of our lives. Tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah will not stop stock market crashes, lung cancer, or the other blows that may come our way. They won't stop a plague, but they can radically transform how we are affected by those blows. Escaping the city as the flames of the Holy of Holies flashed in his eyes, Rabbi Yehoshua lamented, Oy lanu, how will we sacrifice now to atone for the sins of Israel? To comfort him in his grief, Rabbi Yochanan responded in a way so profound. Al yared lecha, do not fear, do not be afraid, he said. We have another form of atonement that is just as effective. Ve'ezeh zeh? What is it? Replies Rabbi Yehoshua. Chesed, acts of profound loving kindness. Ki chesed chafatzti v'lo zavach. For as Amos says, God desires chesed and not sacrifice. Now take a look for a moment at what Rabbi Yochanan does here. His response to the crisis of his time. He replaces what is lost. He replaces what will never be the same again, the temple and its sacrificial ritual, with chesed. It's an astonishing reordering of the priorities of Judaism. Rather than offering sacrifices in the Beit Mikdash, the priority now becomes how we behave in public and in private. God desires not an offering of our crops or our flocks. Rather, the rabbis assert that what God truly desires is chesed. With this shift of priorities, reinforced by countless texts of the Mishnah, Talmud, and Midrash, and more, loving kindness becomes the foundation of Jewish practice. As Hillel said when someone came to him and asked him to teach Torah while standing on one foot, do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. The rest is commentary. Tzeyomad, go and learn. In other words, the purpose of the study of Torah and the observance of mitzvot is to learn chesed. And the rabbis, they didn't need to scour the Bible to find proof and support for their assertion of the primacy of chesed. Isaiah's plea that we read on Yom Kippur emphasizes this point when he exclaims, "Is this the fast that I desire?" No, the fast that God desires, is to unlock the fetters of wickedness, to untie the cords of oppression, to share your bread with the hungry, to take the poor into your home, when you see the naked, to clothe them. For the rabbis, Torah techalta begimilut chasadim v'sofo begimilut chasadim. The Torah itself begins with acts of chesed and ends with acts of chesed. It begins with the chesed of God clothing the naked, Adam and Eve, when they were wandering about in the garden. And it concludes with the chesed of God burying Moses. The act of burial we call chesed shel emet, or the truest act of chesed, for we do it for another without any expectation, let alone possibility of reward or return. No wonder when we ask God for forgiveness, we call upon God's attribute of notzer chesed, of abounding in loving kindness. For the psalmist, not only does the Torah begin and end with chesed, but olam chesed yibaneh, the very foundation of the world, is built on chesed. This is also the argument that Professor Nicholas Christakis, an author of a fascinating book entitled Blueprint, makes. He's a physician and a sociologist who directs the Human Nature Lab at Yale University. Through his research, he introduces the idea that despite a human history replete with violence, we cannot escape our blueprint for goodness. At the core of all societies, he concludes, is the social suite, 8 instinctive behaviors. Included among them is love, friendship, social networks, and cooperation. In other words, chesed is a biological feature of our species, just like the ability to walk upright. And yet, when we see or experience acts of chesed, we seem surprised. Perhaps that's because the disruption that we feel in society today is so profound, we've become used to division and discord, and our expectations of each other have plummeted. Until we have experienced a trauma so pervasive, we, all of us, are awoken to the fundamental truth that indeed olam chesed yibaneh, that indeed the world is built on loving kindness. We see all over the world chesed is prevailing in these uncertain times. People are singing on balconies in Italy and praying Kabbalat Shabbat together on rooftops in Israel. People are volunteering, thanking frontline workers, reconnecting with friends and relatives, and apparently adopting more pets than ever before. In our community, we strove to call every member of Bet Tzedek to check in, to see if people had the supplies that they needed. We're getting groceries, and we're being cared for. Hundreds of volunteers made thousands of calls, and we continue to meet those needs. We partner with UJA to go grocery shopping. We deliver specialty food and medicine. We provide regular calls to the lonely. We pastor to those who need it and to those who may not realize that they do. We set up a COVID-19 bereavement group and more. And we know that these acts of chesed are happening all over our community as organizations and individuals are stepping up to help others. UJA Federation has led our community in addressing issues of poverty and food insecurity exacerbated by the pandemic. Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, working with 24 chefs plus dozens of assistants, has sent 500,000 meals to the staff and families at 14 Toronto hospitals, as well as 30 nonprofit community centers, agencies, shelters, and food banks. We have a member who's been mobilizing support in the St. Clair West neighborhood for St. Michael's Shelter. Neighbors, some who may not have known each other well, are shopping for each other, checking in and providing support. You know what else is chesed? It is a chesed when doctors and nurses, grocery clerks, truck drivers, maintenance staff, everyone who works a frontline job that keeps our essential services up and running, show up for work despite the risks. When you show up for work despite the risks, that too is chesed. And this is the all-important point that is made by Albert Camus, the Nobel laureate in literature and author of the 1947 French classic, The Plague. The plot, much like Unetane Tokef, stresses the powerlessness of individuals to affect their destinies. As the three main characters are discussing their differing approaches to fighting the plague, Dr. Rieu responds to Rambert, "There is one thing I must tell you," he says. "There is no heroism in all of this. It's a matter of common decency." That's an idea that may make people smile, but the only means of fighting a plague is common decency. "What do you mean by common decency?" Rambert's tone was grave. "I don't know what it means for other people, but in my case, I know it consists of my doing my job." We call that notion of common decency chesed. Hayom harat olam. Today, the world stands as at birth. The rabbis debated whether Rosh Hashanah marks the first day of creation or the sixth day, the formation of humanity. In emphasizing Hayom today, the Machzor suggests that both are recreated anew today. In other words, once a year, every year, we come together to reflect on the state of our lives and to reevaluate our priorities. More importantly, we come together to challenge ourselves, to renew our lives through those priorities. We look forward, not back. We do not seek to go back to normal. Rather, we seek to create a new normal. In a provocative opinion piece entitled "Normal is a Failure of Imagination," Tessa McWatt writes that her hope for the future is not about asking for more inclusion into a system that is already broken, but rather about replacing it. It's a hope that we align our responsibility to ourselves with our responsibility to others. And it's time for all of us, she says, to engage in radical mutual care to repair our relations with each other and with the planet. And that's why we're here. That's what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur challenge us to do, to renew ourselves and recreate our world. The coronavirus pandemic, as difficult as it is also an opportunity to move ourselves and our world in a better and more loving direction. We will hold on to what is good as we let go of what holds us back from creating Olam Chesed Yibaneh, a world that is built on a foundation of loving kindness. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, na 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 ya na na na. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, na 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 na. Sing with me. We will build this world on love. Na 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 na. We will build this world on love. Na 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 na. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, na 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 ya na na na. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, na 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 na.